Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another Church of True Christ Sunday ministry. Uh, really happy to be here. This has been a stellar weekend. Of course, this is a pre-recorded video. We were recording this on Saturday, so happy Sunday, everybody. Thanks for joining us, everybody who's here. And if you don't mind, let's bow our heads and let's start with the direct from Aramaic Our Father prayer. O birther, Father, Mother of the cosmos, you create all that moves in light. Focus your light within us, make it useful, as the rays of a beacon show the way. Unite our I can to yours, so that we walk as kings and queens with every creature. Create in me divine cooperation, from many selves, one voice, one action. Grant what we need each day in bread and insight. Forgive our hidden past, the secret shames, as we consistently forgive what others hide. Deceive neither by the outer nor the inner. Free us to walk your path with joy. From you is born all ruling will, the power and life to do, the song that beautifies all. From age to age it renews. Amen. Alrighty, guys. Well, this week on the docket, we have a very interesting topic we are going to be bringing up. We're going to be talking about spiritual warfare and how we can have a foundation in Christ and how we can still use our discernment, our personal sovereignty, and our personal agency to understand what is happening to us while maintaining a balance of focusing on elevating our consciousness into a higher frequency and living in alignment with the values of Christ. So, one of the things, I'll kick it off with this, one of the things I think, in our community, in our conscious collective, in the spiritual community especially, is we maintain and we put a lot of our focus into increasing our awareness, our frequency, our spiritual, our mental, our physical health. We put a lot of focus and energy into manifesting the most joyful, abundant timeline. For each of us has our own, version of that, our own subjective vision for that joyful, abundant timeline. But sometimes we can let things fall to the wayside. We are in spiritual warfare right now. We have to be realistic. It's not taking a negative road. It's not, taking the esoteric black pill, the prison planet, everything like that. But, this is something we do need to hold in our awareness. We have to understand that while we are focusing on walking in alignment with Christ, while we are focusing on manifesting this joyful, abundant experience and timeline for ourselves and elevating our consciousness and our frequency, we have to keep in our awareness as well that we are being bombarded. We are being energy farmed. With a lot of this stuff is definitely going on. So I'm going to hand it off to Dyanna. I'm going to go off with this question. Dyanna, what do you think is a great way to keep it in balance? And what I mean keep it in balance is, focus on, increasing our awareness, walking with the foundation of Christ, manifesting our joyful, abundant life, but keeping our awareness and understanding in that we are being spiritually attacked. And this is something that we need to protect ourselves against. And this is something we need to hold in our awareness as we move forward.
Yeah, 100%, because there's lots of plots coming at us. There's many things that can bog one down emotionally, and just the panic and fear of the human. There's lots of good reasons to have that panic and fear as a human, except we are not only a human, and that's where the balance comes in. We are a spiritual being, not just a spiritual being, but a spiritual being in the process of a very, very strong alchemical process right now, which means that fire that is changing us, that fire that is bringing us more online in a faster way than we've seen in the past. In all of our recorded history, there's been moments like the French Revolution where things took a jump forward, but this blows all of that out of the water. They had a few handful of philosophers that we know of now. I'm sure there was many more at the time that didn't survive the test of time because of the way they wrote things and kept their records. But the way the internet works now, and the way we're all waking up, makes this a rapid shoot ascension with what's going on. So the darkness that's happening to tear us down, some even say it's like for our own good, because the faster we wake up, the more chances there are of the sleeper style people that will die. because they won't be able to handle it. But likewise, that darkness that comes in of all the malevolent plots is the fuel for our alchemical fire that creates us. There's a reason most of us had traumatic upbringings. Our souls decided that on purpose so that we could advance spiritually faster. It's just the way the laws of the universe work, the laws of polarity, and how these things flow together through the law of rhythm. You need that darkness as that fuel because of how 3D we were. Once we continue to rise up, and burn away that darkness in the alchemical fire, we will still have a system where darkness exists, but we will learn how to utilize it properly, and it won't hide in the shadows. So first and foremost, lead your own life with truth and authenticity, because that's the cure for all the evil that's on the world right now.
I like that. I like that. Don, you had a really stellar answer the other night, man. If you want to rehash that for everybody who didn't get a chance to hear about how you maintain that balance between increasing our awareness and frequency and having the awareness of the spiritual warfare.
I'm actually drawing a complete blank on my response from the other day.
It's because you were channeling, bro, like you always do. It's all good. It's all good.
I really do, and I was actually getting a new one as you guys were talking, and
that's okay. Let's hear the new one.
The two most valid points that I can make at this point in time, I guess, from whatever I'm receiving, is being aware of what you were alluding to, Stephen, is being on spiritual autopilot, because we do reach a stage. Well, a lot of us in this community seem to reach a stage. It's like, oh, I'm spiritual, I'm love and light, I'm this, I have my crystals, I have my mantras. I don't really need to do anything else or throw out that extra protection or learn anything else, because I know this procedure works. There's no need. I don't need this new information. I don't need what they're talking about in the Church of True Christ, because I already know what I know, right? So I know what I know, so I don't need to know anything new, right? There's that spiritual plateau that people reach, and I think that's when we become unprotected again, is when we become complacent in our beliefs. It's not that we've even developed the belief system. It's just like, oh, this is working, this is all I need. And then you start to expose yourself again to those things that can just kind of pick through the energetic shield. And on that note, I would say be careful and aware of what and who you let into your energy field, because those are the ones that are going to bring in these spiritual attacks and these breaking points that are going to slowly pick away at you and change your exposure to negativity.
That's awesome, man. No, exactly. I agree with you on that. I was even going to add to this. So I think a really good way, we can hold this awareness of this spiritual warfare, as well as continue to focus on increasing our awareness. And actually, this is going to work hand in hand, is cultivating your neutral mind, getting into a place of non-dualism and non-duality. Because if you are in a space of your neutral mind, you can actually see the stream of information that's coming in a lot easier, and it's way more ergonomic. If I'm using that word correctly, it's ergonomic in that aspect, because when you approach the state of non-duality through neutral mind, where you are not attached to the positive or the negative, you're not blinded by those attachments. So, you can become blinded by emotional attachments if you allow them to run rampant. And to me, at least in my perspective, it definitely muddies up the information stream that you could be receiving from the divine, or the hints and everything that could be occurring around you. Kind of saying what Dyanna talked about, how we chose a lot of our trauma here. This I feel like is something that you and I have talked about this. I know I've talked with Don and Spinja about this too, and ultimately that is the case. It's a tough pill for a lot of people to swallow at first, because I guess we lost Dyanna.
Oh, well,
she'll be back anyways, so it's a tough pill for a lot of people to swallow, knowing that we from a higher sense. There she is. Okay, cool. And it's a tough pill sorry to repeat myself, a tough pill for a lot of people to swallow, to know that we actually chose this before we incarnated into this life, because a lot of people would be like, I would never choose for this to happen to me. I would never choose this kind of trauma. but it is, we choose this trauma before we incarnate here for spiritual alchemy. And the one thing I would at least kind of impart here for a lot of people, like Dyanna was saying, we're on a rapid track ascension. The healing is going to be intense. I've brought up before, it's not like the olden days of the spiritual evolution where, you would have to get on this boat and you would have to do a 2-month boat voyage just to get to this one place. Then you would have to hike this plateau, which might take you another couple weeks just to get to this one monastery so you could read this one book. We are in the age where we have all of these spiritual philosophies and doctrines available to us on the tip of our fingers. We can look them up. So yes, we are looking at a rapid fire ascension for sure. And the biggest thing I could tell a lot of people who might think it's weird, like, why would I choose this trauma for myself? Look at where you are in your life now. Most of the people I know who have had trauma and have experienced some kind of darkness, they are in the most elevated places of their life to date. So, you have to sit there and you have to take a look at that. And while, yes, it might seem weird or funny that you might have chosen this for yourself as an experience when you incarnated here, but look at where you are now. And that's the one thing I just want to impart on you. And Don, I liked what you said, the boundaries. Absolutely. Of course, I'm of the mentality, and maybe to a fault, to that we all are a family here in this conscious collective. And, I still do feel that way. But, there are some people who don't feel that way. And, there are some people who might use people who feel like me to their advantage. So this is what I mean about setting those boundaries, cultivating that neutral mind, being able to pick up on those signals. What do you guys think about that?
I absolutely agree with what you were saying. And this sounds so screwed up. And it still takes me a minute when I say it. I've had an absolutely terrible life up until about, 7 years ago. It was the thing that you could make a movie about, just the abuse, the drugs, the partying, just the crazy shit that went on. And I should be one of those people I've had this terrible life. I thank every moment of it because I'm now in the highest state of self-awareness that I've ever been in my entire existence. I am in that greatest place that you're talking about, and it's getting better by the day, right? I had the truck I want, my laneway. I have the best paying job. My boss is starting to get more jovial and easy to get along with, right? Things in Spinge's life are coming along, and it's literally just being where we are and understanding that, yeah, these trials and tribulations sucked, but it was to teach us to be able to detach from all of the things that we were talking about, because, you had to get that emotional ass kicking all the way up to be able to get to this state of emotional maturity to be like, okay, yeah, I really don't need it. Dyanna mentioned how I seem not necessarily detached, but everything seems to roll off of me. And it's because I've been broken over and over and over and over and over. And it's just okay, it doesn't matter. Yeah, that sucked, but in 5 minutes, I'm going to do something else. I can't care about that 5 minutes later. That happened then, right? So let's just move on, right? I don't like to think that I'm detached, but I think it's my own version of spiritual protection, because it's okay, yeah, that sucked. Yeah, that person turned out to just be using me. That person turned out to be a narcissist. That person turned out to be a loose harvester that was pretending to be my friend, but was just feeding off of me because I'm high vibration, right? You have to be aware of all of these things. And, the first couple of times, even as somebody that was spiritually aware, it broke my heart. And now it's just that sucked. There was another one, right? It just can. You just have to be able to be like that at a certain stage.
Yeah, you have a monk mind, my friend. Dyanna, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, very similar, because you do get used to having a broken heart. What he just said, you get used to it. So you can find yourself super attached. I have a similar boss story where we became really close. We were on the road to besties, but there was just this disconnect. Her ego would get triggered by my spirituality, but I was long past living pretending that wasn't the case. I'm not doing that anymore. I always said goodbye to all the previous friends that just it didn't vibe for. They preferred me when I had a drinking thing versus being spiritual. So that says something about society right there. And these are not people that drank themselves. So that just shows like how much the spirit will trigger people. So then you just get used to it. Like you're like, if I can say goodbye to this person, then I can say goodbye to that person. Because these new people that come into our lives, we've already said goodbye to childhood best friends, or even loves, or whatever the situation, parents, children, or not children, sorry, siblings. You say, or some elderly people I've heard back in groups I used to be in, they didn't say goodbye to their children, but their children said goodbye to them for not getting certain things done, and their children refuse to let them come over and things like that. So people have had to have that kind. They got mine are young, so they can't leave me, but because that's, a next level. But you do get used to that, just the letdown and all the things, and it makes you tougher. And it's why warriors are tough, because you go through the fire and you do toughen up, and it's not like it doesn't hurt anymore. It'll be the same layer of pain, honestly, sometimes more pain. But like in the olden days, I was just so programmed to not accept pain. Like that's why I like your surrender. I was not programmed to accept pain. So I would just be why? And I would just be in complete resistance to any small infraction. I was so fragile. Everything upsetted me, like everything. Where now but life just does get better and better and better. I don't want to name the things, because then that puts manifestation in behind them, because it doesn't matter. Because when things come now, it's just like, it literally is like a blaze, and you feel it blow up in the smoke, and that's just fuel for the fire. Because I know what it's like to just go through the emotions. Like simply learning to go through your emotions is something that just base level humanity is not programmed to do. They're programmed to keep themselves so busy, so into dopamine, that's why I was going down that dopamine road, because it's keeping you away from your truest self. And in that truest self, you're going to find the pain that you don't want to look at. But when you look at the pain, that's when you become the warrior. And that's when these outside forces lose more and more and more power over you, because they can use all kinds of things, like the Agent Smith effect. This is how people, like if we try to be friends with these lower people, not lower, I don't mean that in any type of way, except that they're lower awareness, right? And if they're lower awareness, they could be perfectly fine people. They could be lovely, beautiful, nice people. And maybe to their other lower awareness people, there's no issues. But you come in with your higher vibration, saying things that are breaking the narratives that are so strong in their head. And all of a sudden, Agent Smith comes online, and their goal is to bring you down in any way, shape, or form that they can. Whatever the thing is, like you see it come at you from all these different ways. But then when you don't attach yourself to any person, I find that limits the Agent Smith effect. So there's like lots of people I know in my life. And when people are kept like acquaintances, and you can still have love in your heart, because when you live from that place of love, like you still have love, but there's no attachment. I find when you're living from non-attachment, these people are now benefits to your life, because all of a sudden synchronicities and the divine can work through them instead. I think something about the attachment, and I couldn't tell you the scientific reason, but I think when you attach to them, it activates the need to get you, where when you stay non-attached, and this goes for everything in life, Buddhism was all about non-attachment. There's a reason. It allows the divine to do its job. It's like taking your ego out of it, taking your part in the play out of it, and just letting the divine roll the script, and then it can work its way for you however you want. And this is where you can really utilize manifestation as well, when you stay unattached.
I would completely agree. And I was going to say, attachment rules you. That's why when you attach yourself to something, it ultimately has your power. And that's ultimately why when you take that, at least in my opinion, when you take that space of non-attachment, it no longer has power over you. You have power over it. So then it works in a synergy with your awareness at that point. Like you were saying, these people can give you like synchronicities, can be like have divine messages or something along those lines. It's because of that power swap. And you were talking about the Agent Smith effect. I think one of the biggest disillusionments we have on our spiritual evolution is when we embark on it, how even it seems even our loved ones and a lot of the people who we had as close friends start to draw distant from us. It's almost as if they don't want us in a subconscious sense, beginning to take this road to this unification with source and the divine. It almost like you were saying with the Agent Smith effect, I would say that it was even like a low level aspect of the Agent Smith effect. You begin to see these people start to distance themselves, like you were saying with the grandparents and the kids. along those lines. And so I mean, that's one of the biggest batches of disillusionment we have as we begin to embark on building our foundation with Christ, walking with Christ, and living in the divine light. Is we start to see the people we know and love drift away from us. And touching on the broken heart thing too, that's you and I are a lot alike in that sense, Don. Things just kind of roll, and you just kind of take it in stride and roll. And ultimately, at first, when we undergo this process of healing ourselves from our trauma, we understand that we've calloused our heart center. And at least I did in my aspect. I calloused my heart center. I almost blocked myself off from feeling at a certain point as well. Like I just would not, like an emotion would come, I wouldn't even feel it. I would just like snuff it down. I would just keep moving forward and all of that. But the number one thing I think a lot of us with Christ and the divine want us to learn how to do is to love without walls around our heart. And that is it takes time to get there. Don't beat yourself up over it if you're not exactly there yet. The best thing I can tell you is when you get there, it is an immense power. You're not a victim. Okay. And you can choose who receives that love. That is the spiritual boundary that you set forth when you allow yourself to love without walls around your heart, and that's something that we through our traumas and through everything that we experience, we build up these energetic walls around our heart center. We build up these we have the scaffolding, the first layer, the scaffolding moves back to the second layer, and it's almost like we build up this energetic concrete around our heart center. And through our healing and our inner work and our spiritual alchemy, we begin to decommission and demolition those walls, that scaffolding that we have set around our heart, to allow it to shine bright. And the one thing I can hand everybody, at least I can hand to everybody, is it's empowering. You're not vulnerable. You choose who you give that love to. You choose who receives your energy at that point. And it's the most empowering thing ever. So that's the one thing I can say to you guys. But back to the spiritual warfare tip, let's kind of tip off on this for a second too. I mean, let's talk about energy farming for a second and how we can be aware of this. Now, Dyanna actually came out to me with a very interesting theory, which, I have actually kind of entertained this theory myself a little bit as well, that we could potentially be being energy farmed in this conscious collective. So Dyanna, if you don't mind just kind of filling everybody in on your thoughts about this, because it's very interesting and it resonates.
Yeah, well, it starts with the whole internet itself being it's like if you were to travel in space, like through a star or a portal, there's a wormhole of travel. The internet itself creates that. There's this fast moving energy through it of information and energy, the Akashic records, like that's all information, all mind, it's all information. So there is guaranteed an energetic layer of how the internet works. And there's a kids movie called The Pixels or something, where it shows how everything inside the internet's alive, and to a point that's extremely true. And then there's like different areas that you go through. It shows it as like apps, I think, but they're all different websites. They all have different environments. Like some of them are peaceful and some of them are not. Some of them are malevolent and some of them are not. And then there's also ones you can go into, just like the olden day Western bar, and some people are having fun and some people are fighting. So this is kind of where we find ourselves in the internet. And it depends on what energy you give it. So you have to make sure to call back your energy all the time, to be doing energy checks on the self all the time. When you use the internet and you leave, do you feel like crap? Do you feel called back to it like an addiction, like olden day Candy Crush days? Like, do you feel like you have to do it? Or do you need to do it because you have to actually go send an email, or you actually want to make a tweet? You have tweets in your mind you want to send. You want to check in and actually talk to people. Like you want to research something. You need to make a video. You need to make an image. Like there is lots of reasons that we need to use the internet. But when are we using it just because we get ourselves, because of all the things we need to use it for, we get ourselves in a habitual dopamine receiving pattern of needing to use the internet. And then that's where they come in and take advantage. And they know this. And they are specifically, there's a new movie that came out with the guy that says, I think you should leave, that show. And he's with Paul Rudd in the movie. And his actual job was how to make things more addictive. I don't even know if that's a real job or they were just trying to tell us people do this. He literally did and he was basically the character from I Think You Should Leave, which is incredibly awkward. But he's this guy that his job is to get you addicted so that you give, and then he would have different clients, whatever their goal was, he would make sure he got you to do whatever they wanted you to do. And all he did was manipulate. And that's a real thing. That's a real thing from humans. And that's a real thing from entities. And they work hand in hand. The humans probably don't even realize, I think a lot of the malevolent humans out there don't even realize they are being fed information. They probably think they're a good guy, but they're being fed information that causes them to do these things to us. And remember Mad Men, he thought he was great. He was a grade A narcissist. Tony Soprano thought he was great. Like, these people don't realize they're the bad guys in most of these situations. So this is why it all comes down to personal sovereign discernment, because we can't expect them to wake up and start doing the right thing when they already think they are doing the right thing. They think, and they say this all to each other all the time in whatever business it's in, you decided to do that. Just like the mobsters and the loan sharks, they decided to gamble, so I get to kill them. I get to break their knees. It's basically the same thing. I get to steal their energy. I get to steal their time. I get to steal their money. Like, do you realize how many scams are out there now on the internet just stealing your money, taking advantage of these dopamine receiving situations? So it's a big soup of a mess, and you just need to watch your energy level, because even I recently found myself like, I had an internet problem without realizing it, and I have managed to actually sever that connection. And for the last little while, when I use it, it feels clean. I'm not using it as much. I'm using it more aware, and it just feels clean. Like, whatever was sucking the energy dry, I did manage to sever the connection, and the first step was awareness.
I dig that. Don, what are your thoughts on that, man, and the internet and the potential sucking and farming our energy?
Oh, I absolutely think, like, I've witnessed it, especially having a young teenager in the house. Like, it is, I can say this openly, I have suffered with actual physical addiction to substance, and I've seen the same withdrawal symptoms and character behaviors as I displayed as a junkie and a drunk, right? Just because of the technological, like, they're raised on it, you know. That's, his father used it as a babysitter, so now it was like basically ingrained in him. Like, you know, every time I need an emotion, every time I need a hug, every time I need this, I need a screen in front of me, I need to play Zelda, I need to level up, I need to do something, right? It actually became like heroin to him, because it was at one stage it was his only form of satisfaction. And I think exactly what we did is we helped him through this, and I'm sitting behind the way we did that. We turned it back to natural interaction. We bought him a freaking drum kit, and it's sitting right here, and it has, like, pretty much all but severed his internet addiction, because he has something new that gives him the sense of fulfillment, the sense of pleasure, the sense of accomplishment. And, like, we as parents can be more proud. Like, he gets looked at as a strange kid when he goes to school because he doesn't have a cell phone. Well, he doesn't need one because he doesn't want one, because he knows what they are, right? He uses ours for what, like, his drum lesson, that's his internet. If he wants to watch a movie, sure, go ahead. But that junkie mentality that had him hooked in and can hook anybody in, it, like Dyanna said, it is a dopamine hookup. And when you get used to it, it's the same as any other cyclical addiction. You're just going to keep craving it and more of it, right? And until you identify it and replace it with something more balanced and better use of your energy, you're going to be stuck in it.
Absolutely. You know, one of these, it's a very interesting thing about this, because, you know, people are going to hear this and they're going to look for the sole proprietor. You know, we were talking about that the other night in our show, Don. You know, it's like how when we talk about the darkness in the world, you know, and we talk about where all of this stuff emanates from, you know, we have this dogmatic thing in our community that there has to be a single sole proprietor of where all of this is coming from. It's either that tiny little country in the Eastern Mediterranean. It's either the reptilians. It's either, this or that. And, the families, all of this. But, ultimately, the one thing I think a lot of people forget is it's a combination of free will and being taken advantage of. Ultimately, we allow this, and even I mean, it's through revelation of the method and karmic retribution. In all honesty, when we're looking at it this way, because they're basically, we're buying this up. Even those in the collective who are unaware, may not be aware at this point in time, they are buying in, and through their free will of buying into this, and the mob mentality and joining the crowd behind this, because as Dyanna was saying, yes, everybody's using the internet, it's how you use it. But ultimately, the energy farming isn't coming from a sole proprietor; it's coming from a combination. It's coming from us and us being taken advantage of. And I think that's one of the biggest things we still kind of struggle with in our conscious collective a little bit, is nobody wants to take the accountability for the free will that they've input into the scenario. So, I mean, when you get on the internet and you use it for whatever reason, you are using your free will to get on the internet and use it. You know what I mean? So, and whatever, if you are aware of what's happening to you there, or you're not aware of what's happening to you there, you are still utilizing your free will by getting on the internet. And I kind of like, what Don ended up doing with his son, showing him what delayed gratification is. The dopamine response from delayed gratification is so much more satiating, so much longer lasting, than your quick fixes that you're getting from hopping on social media, or playing the Terrence and Phillip pay for play game, or whatever you're going to be playing at that point in time. So, or World of Warcraft, all of those other things too that elicit those addictive behaviors. So yeah, I mean, that's something I think we have to keep in our awareness, is that we buy into it too. It's not something is controlling us. Yeah, everybody here knows that we have control over 99% of our destiny. We have control over our choices, our intentions, everything that we do. So it's up to us to hold awareness in that, and to understand that this could be an implication. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I agree. And it all does always come down to personal sovereignty. And the movie's name was Emoji. I remembered while you were talking. But
Emoji, awesome, sweet.
Yeah, because it does show you, the more we can bring our awareness to see the intricacies of how this is happening, the more we can peel back the layers. Like you were saying, yes, like every single one of those entities you mentioned, like actual living human ones, are probably bad guys, like the evil villains. All of them probably are. They don't even necessarily work together. They are competing against each other in a lot of the situations. Think about it. If they're evildoers, they're not going to play nicely with others. So you have all these competing agendas going on, all at the end of the day for it's like they always talk about the earth resources. And the gold on earth. Yeah, our gold, our energy, us. We are the product, our attention. And some of them are doing it for the actual energy, or some of them are doing it for our mind creation powers. That's why the news and those creepy things where you see 100 news anchors all saying the same thing in the same timing, usually. That's all to get our attention pointed in the direction they want their narrative played out. And this is why you get so many conflicting things. And the ocean looks like it's in a big storm right now, because they are fighting for dominance. They are fighting for their own narratives to win. It's not one evil dude. It's not even one race of evil dudes. And it's not even just humans or just aliens. It's a whole smorgasbord of tons of people taking advantage of us, because we have been like a fast food restaurant for thousands of years, where many people frequent, and it's being taken advantage of from every element, including our own. So like you said, responsibility, 100%, because the second we take that sovereign, discerning, personal responsibility, their meal is taken off the table, because our energy now starts circulating back into ourselves. The Taurus image, we are our own energy simulators. Like, we are our own energy creators, and the divine, the Christ consciousness energy coming right through the middle pillar, when we are aligned in true sovereign discernment, that energy now can flood into us without restraint, because there's no block anything of falsehoods. This is why I always talk about truth and authenticity, because when you live in falsehoods, you create chaotic energy that creates dissonance, so that purest of energy cannot get to you. And this is why there's so many false light hubs you can get trapped in. That's all its own world. There's only one place you're safe, and that's the Christ energy to trust, and then your own self. But your truest of truest core best self is the Christ self.
I dig it. Don, what are your thoughts on that?
I would agree with all of that. And one of the things that I have been using, and it would actually came from something that I picked up from Dolores Cannon, is what you guys were talking about earlier, is that, looking at everything from a third person perspective. If you remove yourself out of your life situation and you start looking for the characters in your life, instead of the emotionally and egotistical attachment to the human being that you've known your entire life, and you start looking at them, you start looking at everybody you're involved with in your life as just a character in a play, and you're not even you, you're the observer. Right? When you pull back to that observer standpoint, you can actually start to pick out the individuals in your life that are draining you as well. And it becomes your choice. Like you said, it becomes discernment. Once you can pull back to that focus, I guess, you can actually see it. And then it becomes a choice. Like, do I still want to give this person part of my energy? Because we all know we have certain people in our lives that are feeding off of us. We can feel it. We get it every time we're around them. It's like, okay, another conversation. Or if it's an uplifting conversation, you're like, yeah, because it's cyclical. There's different energy exchanges with different beings, and you're going to be able to identify that once you pull back and just start looking at people as character types, because there are those that even unconsciously just drain us, right? Because they do have a terrible life, and it's all they know, and it's all they can talk about, and it's all they can create. And we have a window into that as being associated with them because we're plugged into them. Well, you can keep plugged into it and get that energy drain, or you can pull the plug on it and not be involved.
Exactly, man. I dig it. And yes, I like that perspective. I like both of what you both said. It is. And once you kind of sit back into that, I'll bring up the neutral mind again, and you're in that observer standpoint, you can pick out. And I would even say there are things, not judging a book by its cover. Of course, everybody here is a vibe reader. We're all vibe readers. We all read the energy of the room. We all walk in, and I would say there are common personality types that we experience as characters on our stage throughout our life. And, then when you actually step back into that space of non-attachment, that observer, you start to see these character types repeat themselves, as almost like a lesson to you. It's almost as if the divine and Christ are like, okay, you were pretty forthcoming with the last one that was like this. Let's see if you learned your lesson. We're going to bring another person with the same personality type into your stage. Might be a completely different person, but they have the same personality type you've caved in for, or you've fallen prey to in the past and allowed to drain your energy. So you will get tested in that sense too. That's definitely happened to me. I've encountered many of the same personality similarities and types throughout many different individuals in my experience too. And when you take that non-attachment, that observer approach, you can start to pick them off, and you can put that boundary up. You can already know. Of course, don't judge a book by its cover. Give them the benefit of the doubt. But once you give them the benefit of the doubt and you see the similar signs, that's when you know that it's time to put up that boundary and maybe not let that person get your energy. Since we're speaking about energy and energy farming, I want to bring up Loosh. I think this is a good topic of conversation. We hear a lot of people talk about Loosh. So Loosh actually has another name too. It has a very uncommon name, but it's called Dukkha. Yeah. And Dukkha is actually the Buddhist term for it, but it is a energy that we emit when we are in intense states of negative emotion, or if we have an untrained mind. If our mind is not trained and we don't meditate, or try to gain that inner stillness about us and that inner clarity, we're ultimately leaking this energy too. So, ultimately, we don't want this energy to be emitting from ourselves, first and foremost. Second of all, we don't want to be leaking energy to be fed on. So, one of the best ways, I can honestly give you some advice on how to not do this, and we'll get Dyanna and Don's approach on it as well, is number one, the content you intake. Are you watching the doom porn? Are you watching the doom and gloom, the black pill? Everything's fucked. We're all gonna die. We're doomed. There's nothing we can do. Are you watching content like that? I mean, like we were talking about here on this episode, when we're spending time on the internet, what we intake on the internet ultimately plays into that energy farming as well. And, if you're looking at nothing but shit posting all day, or you're looking at, the doom and gloom, or you're looking at the black pill, ultimately that's going to be a loosh farm. You know what I mean? That's going to be harvesting loosh. I think one of the biggest things a lot of people get mixed up is being realistic does not mean having fear. I think this is something that's a huge issue, because there's a lot of people who make this correlation that having fear is a sense of realism. No, you can be realistic without having fear. And the way that you do that is to train your mind and cultivate that neutral mind, and understand that, you can be realistic from a non-attached approach as to what's going on with you. So number one, the content that you intake. Two, how you're engaging with people. I still see a lot of people in our conscious collective just arguing with other people in the conscious collective. You know what I mean? Like, especially on some, even on Sarah's videos, like I'll sometimes scroll through the comments on Sarah's videos on YouTube, and people are arguing with each other, even on her videos and things like that. So it's like, how are you engaging with other people? How are you treating yourself? How are you treating the world? Ultimately what's going to not make you a loosh farm and not have your dukkha harvested is the personal sovereignty, the personal agency, the personal discernment, all of that stuff, and understanding that your energy goes where your focus goes. And if you are putting your focus into the doom and gloom, the black pill, the fear, the sadness, all of that, from an attached standpoint, you are upping yourself to be harvested. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Sorry, I had myself muted. Absolutely. And it really is that way. I keep going back to this, what you feed your mind is what you create. And it is really that simple. We're energetic projectors. We're creator beings, right? That's why we've been set to autopilot, because it's a lot easier for the system to get us to create what they want than, a bunch of free-spirited spiritual beings that know what they're doing, creating the best reality. There's not much to feed off there for the ones that have been feeding off of us. And we as high vibrational beings stick out like a movie spotlight in the sky, right? So if you're always going to draw in some type of parasite or something. And basically the best advice I can give is you have to be your own energetic bug zapper. You can't develop that complacency. You can't develop that. Once you're in that high state of being, it's yours to protect as well, right? That is your state of mind. It's your state of being, and it's yours to enjoy, right? And if you're not absorbing these things, it won't affect it like that. And if you're not allowing people that drain you, it won't affect it like that, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
Great answer, man. Great answer. What about you, Dyanna?
Yeah, 100%. And that just adds to what I was going to say, because the whole thing with the loosh, 100%. And that's where sin comes in. That's what sins are. Sins are your moments where loosh gets out. So all 7 of them, all 7 deadly sins, when you're engaging in those from your lower chakra areas, you are throwing out your loosh. You are handing out the food. And I like that you use the bug analogy, because I was thinking mice. It's like, so entities being the mice, if you lay out a ton of food you're going to get mice. Just like if you're throwing out a ton of energy, what are these things not going to come eat it? So this is why, like, a lot of things, they're not necessarily the most evil of evil things. Like, some of the things feeding off us are, but some of the other things are just like, yo, a snack, and they go and get it. And why wouldn't they, right? It's wasted energy anyways. So we do this to ourselves to a large degree. And when it comes to what you were saying about fear and how we can be intelligent with knowing the plots, it comes down to pragmatism. It comes down because it's heavily in my chart to be cautious, to be not so much scared, but just like very pragmatic, very over analytical. I would only want to say appropriately analytical about situations. So like if something's coming up, I'm like, okay. And then like I used to freeze up in a freeze state and end up paralyzed and do nothing. But now I've learned to just like allow all the incoming thoughts to just be what they are and just look at them all. Don't get scared. Just look, because some of the things you're being shown are very real, like threats that could happen. And instead of getting scared, shutting down and not improving your life or whatever the thing might be, you think about it. So like, were you about to go on the internet and look at bad things that were going to loose you? And then you got a pragmatic thought, like, should I do that? No. Okay, good. Should I go take a new job? I hate those examples, but that's all I got. Should I go take this new job? Oh, I don't know what I do. Will everyone hate me? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, maybe that's the thing you do and you do push through for that, because that's for the betterment of your actual future. So like when we come at these things and just logically think about them, we don't need fear. You have also been brainwashed to not realize how smart you are. We are incredibly smart and intelligent people, and they don't want us to know this. You are, and this is again, we're learning to feel your emotions is thumbs up, because when you're thinking about these things, if an emotion, trust me, the emotions actually do go away and you're allowed to just think. It's not like a robot. You can have emotions when things are real, but you can learn not to have emotions when you're just thinking about the situation, because there's lots of people, especially the Gen Zs and below. And I feel like I'm an early Gen Z. I know I'm technically a millennial, but I was like that nervous, overly worried, used to even be woke. Like, oh my God, is someone offended? Like, no, you can learn to just think things through without the crippling emotions, but then still, because anxiety, Alan Watts said this, and I mentioned this on the solo video I did the other day because it just blew my mind. He's talking about this in the 50s, 1958, I think the article came out in, and he's talking about how anxiety is a byproduct of intelligence. So just allow the anxiety, allow that process, and perhaps what might feel negative, but negative can be fuel, and just allow that to think about these things properly, because you don't need to sin. And if you actually give yourself the time to think it through, you can learn what's crap to be thrown away. That's sin. That's being a louche farm, or what's worth pursuing in your life. It might still take actual energy and effort from you, but this is beneficial. This is throwing yourself in the garbage. And everything is a choosing point. And when you choose wisely, your life becomes a totally different and better place in just a year, a month, a day, every decision at a time.
I completely agree with that. And I'm going to, kind of go off of what you were saying there, with the sin and from the lower centers. And this is actually why it's very important to balance your lower centers, because if you balance your lower centers, your lower three chakras, your lower triangle, you're going to have more control, because what that's going to do is that's going to strengthen the bridge to the higher centers. A lot of people, they get so caught up, especially in our spiritual community. Oh, I'm only in the higher centers. I'm only in my heart chakra and up. But, we still see a lot of these individuals who negate and neglect the lower center balancing and work are the ones that still have problems giving off this loosh. So that is why it is important, if you're on your spiritual evolution and on your walk with Christ, that you need to balance yourself. That is something I'm definitely going to throw in. Also, adding to what Dyanna was saying about, anxiety being a form of intelligence. I completely agree with that. I also, with anxiety comes tension, right? So this is something that, a lot of people, when they feel this tension, they ultimately want to push it away. They don't want to feel this tension. They don't want to, but the one thing I would call you to do is actually sit with this tension and feel it and find where it is coming from. I guarantee you're going to learn something through this process, because it's through the things that we avoid, we ultimately are. Let me rephrase what I was going to say. It's in the parts of us and the feelings that we avoid are the true victory. That is the best thing I could say. So if we overcome and we triumph these parts of us that we tend to avoid, the tension, the anxiety, all of these things, ultimately that leads us to the path to victory, because we begin to learn about ourselves. We begin to cultivate that self-mastery. And we begin to understand that we actually need to feel and sit with these things in order to understand where they're coming from within us. And then when we understand where they are coming from within us, we can address those things and we can heal them. The more that we push these things away, whether you're feeling the anxiety, whether you're feeling the tension, whether you're feeling this sadness, this anger, or whatever it may be, the more that we push these things away, the more that we do ourselves a disservice. And, ultimately it's the way to go is to sit with those things, allow yourself to feel them from that neutral space, because if you're in that neutral space, you have no attachment to it. You're observing it as it is. And when you observe it as it is, you're not attached to the emotion, and you can think about it inquisitively and analytically, like Dyanna's saying too, from that pragmatic standpoint. It almost, how many of you would absolutely love to have a third-party objective point of view of all of your bullshit? So you could just sit there and take a look at it, and you'd be like, holy crap, dude, this is coming from this is coming from that. It's stupid I'm feeling this way. That's very petty. Maybe we should just kind of scratch that. But this is what this gives you. It gives you the objective third-party view of all of your bullshit. And that way you can look at all of your BS and be like, okay, cool. I have kind of a better lookout on myself. So absolutely. And good thing on the Alan Watts, man, he was ahead of his time. He was absolutely ahead of his time. Bless him, man. But ultimately, guys, yes, this even plays into the leash factor too, because if you're avoiding your bullshit, and you're not addressing it, that is also leaving food out for the mice. So what are you guys' thoughts on that?
I would totally agree with that. And you guys were talking, and it just reminded me, it might have even been what you were mentioning earlier in the show that I said on our panel, is about trusting your body, because exactly what you guys are talking about, being in that mindset where you can have that discernment. I've said it on both of the shows that we've talked about this before. We're in one of the best detectors of bullshit and lies and attacks. We're living in a suit that will tell us all of these things. It's just the fact that we've been so disconnected from everything these amazing things can do and can show us. Once you start to properly receive the signals again from your biological vessel, a lot of this just becomes second nature. You're like, wait, no, this is wrong. I shouldn't do this. This is going to cause me negative energy. I'm going to draw this into myself if I do that. When somebody's lying to you, especially when it's to your face. The internet's a little iffy because you can't really catch a vibe most of the time. But you do get to the state where where somebody or something is emotionally or spiritually draining on you just as soon as you go to interact with it. It's that pang, it's that instinct, it's that no, I shouldn't do that. And we're in it. All you have to do is listen to this thing. It's brilliant too. We are absolutely divinely connected to an amazing source of information, but these things have some great autopilot features. And we've been taught to ignore them, and we really shouldn't.
I would agree with you. What are your thoughts, Dyanna? Your mic, my friend.
Thank you. I agree. And I would just add on to what you said before I get into is human design, again, your authority type. So how you would listen in to your own pings could vary depending on who you are. And this is why we find a hard time nailing down the correct answer, because not just in our authority type, but with so many things, the variables for even like what's a sin is different for each person. There's usually a ballpark area, but some people can get away with certain things and they don't feel a sin. Or even in our own evolution, like there's things that were not a sin at all back when we were doing lower things, because that was the sinning. And then, but once you raise the stakes, now sometimes eating an apple is like betraying myself, because it's like spikes the glucose, and it's like now I feel like, oh, it's not time for my apple. So like the layers of where we're doing ourselves the best we could be doing for ourselves, they change. So you always have to be open to those. And one thing that will help that progress in what you were saying, Stephen, and when you're talking about the tension and learning to live in that pain, and how I was saying earlier, the alchemical fire and the warrior nature, this is why things like cold plunges are powerful. And there's many reasons. It'll burn your brown fat and do all kinds of great things for your cardiovascular system and your meridian system. So it has lots of benefits physically, but just spiritually, keeping yourself in that freezing cold water is torture. So if you can do that, that's where you build up that warrior self. So maybe later it's an emotional issue, but you're like, I've got this, because you can trust yourself. You have impressed yourself. And from an authentic place, you have shown yourself you can do really amazing things. This is why climbing a mountain is good. And yoga, quite literally, brings you into that tension, spreads out the fascia, so gets that stuff moving. And then Stephen's Kriya Yoga, which even I can't do yet because I'm not at that place to put myself through such torture. But because for me, it's torture. But like, I'm sure but Stephen's been doing it forever now, and he's given himself that bandwidth where he can do it now, and it's brought him to that higher warrior level where, like, for me, I'll go do different things to get that warrior. I still seek the warrior edge, but like for me, it's found in different places, and everybody's got their thing that like brings them that I am a warrior, because you want to be able to trust yourself, to be impressed with yourself, to be proud of yourself from a good, authentic place. And then that's where you have the strength to win against whatever opposition is coming your way, because you are an all-powerful God being, and the all really is mind.
I dig it. And you know, and this is just what I'm going to say. I mean, and that's why honestly, I mean, we have to look at a true Trinity, and we know we have a Trinity in Christ, but you know, a Trinity that we can be pragmatic with and apply it to here is, you know, our mind, body, and spirit, you know, how intertwined they are. You know, how much they affect each other, how much they, and of course, you know, everybody's got their own thing, you know, and mine might be the Kundalini Kriyas, yours might be going on a hike, whatever it might be, a cold plunge. It's everybody's got their thing. And ultimately what you're going to see is when you take this mindset, you're going to see your external reality shift, because your internal reality has shifted. You know, you have moved into that space of power. You have moved into that space of personal authority with your existence, your craftsmanship, you know, in this world. I mean, they don't call it the great work for no reason, you know, and we're all ultimately in this great work of ours. And we have our collective great work, and we have our own subjective great work that we undergo. And that's ultimately the mindset that each of us honestly needs to take. And I dig how you said that some people, you know, depending on their human design, don't have a sin, or you know, or don't see certain things as a sin, or won't receive karma for certain things as a sin due to their awareness, and some people will. And you know, that brings up you know, a lot of interesting things about our own subjective journeys, and you know, the different things that you know, apply to us. But you know, real quick, I want to bring up, because we talked about the spiritually draining, and you know, and I think what I would like to do, or at least I'm sure you guys are down too, is to kind of give some people some heads up on what can be considered spiritually draining for them, you know, in case they don't hold that awareness. And the number one thing I'm going to tell you that's spiritually draining, and I know both of you have heard me go off on this multiple times, if you are listening to somebody who thinks they have it all figured out or they know everything, okay, that is going to be the number one thing that's going to spiritually drain you, because you're going to get caught up. You know, I think us and our our collective, and I can't blame us for it too, because, we find a narrative or a train of thought or an ideology that really resonates with us. And it's almost as if we clutch onto it, like we don't want to let it go. And, and we can see this kind of showcase itself in a lot of different people in our community, who, clutch onto one thing. That also, in my opinion, is spiritually draining, not leaving yourself open, because I've said it before and I've said it again, but it bears repeating. And I repeat this to help everybody here. I'm not repeating it because I like to hear myself say things over and over again. This is ultimately going to be what you experience, and I guarantee you will. The truth that you know today may not be the truth that you know tomorrow. And the more open you leave yourself to what the truth could potentially be, as far as getting stuck in a single train of thought, a single ideology, a single narrative, a single spiritual doctrine, whatever it might be, you're really doing yourself a disservice. You're draining yourself because you're not allowing your evolution at that point. Like, you might think you are, but you're not. So that, I would say, is spiritually draining as well. And also bypassing groups that bypass. That is insanely people who are, and I know both of you can think of somebody who comes to mind. I actually forgot I didn't block her on Facebook, and she tried to comment on something, so I had to. But people who bypass and and groups that promote bypassing, that's spiritually draining. But let me get your guys' thoughts on what you think is spiritually draining, and what kind of tips you can give to people to avoid that.
Okay, I'll start. I actually wrote groups when you were talking. First thing I wrote was groups.
Yeah.
And that's why I think we all love our group. It's because we all, and like, even when we're saying different things, not a single person is like, no, that's not correct. This is what I believe. Not ever. We'll go, that's really cool. This is my take on it. And it's not even like we agree on every little facet, but like that awareness is there, that space is, you always hear hold space. Well, that group really is accidentally, on purpose, divine wise, just holding space. It's a container where authenticity reigns, and it just is what it is. And then that's it. And there's no games. There's no, you know what I mean? It just is. But I have seen so many groups. I've seen so many weird things where like, they're just talking about so many irrelevant things like black magic. With everything going on, why are you talking about black magic? You're insane. And that's judgy, so whoops. But whoa, cannot even. And I was into witchcraft at once upon a time, but that was just so obviously not a good idea. And it wasn't just like, because you think about like a few fringe people. No, this was a large, hundreds of people, hundreds. That was ugh. And not just that, like there's the spiritual bypassing ones, the love and light ones. Everything's one. If you try to talk about real issues, they'll go, oh, well, you're just promoting darkness. You're just giving into the narrative. It's like, no, I'm just bringing awareness to this fact that like the king is being mentioned in Canada again. That's not fear. That's just, why is this happening? We should be aware that this is happening. This is not normal. They're trying to put this into Canada like that was always a thing, but it's clearly just a slap back to Trump trying to buy us, because we didn't talk. We knew about the attorney general, but we didn't praise the queen or anything like that. I don't know, Dawn, did you ever praise the queen when you were a kid in school? Yeah, they do now.
No.
They do now.
Oh, Kyla did.
Oh, she did?
Grade 2.
What?
Grade 2.
Grade 2, they sang God Save the King.
Just great. Yeah, they sang God Save the King. And I was like, what? And yeah, so because, it's a narrative, but I'm not giving into the fear. I'm just noticing this is a brand new thing. But that's just one example. There used to be so many examples of that old cult I talk about being in years ago when I was first positively awakening. I was in it for almost over a year. I forget how long exactly, but it was over a year. So I got like pretty attached to her, but she started cool, and I could have stayed attached to her. She did a lot for me. She taught me a lot. The stuff she was teaching wasn't even exactly wrong. It was actually all true. Her ego is what got out of control. She started getting bossier. She started telling us our questions were stupid. And then she eventually took away, because that group actually was really good too. The women in that group, sorry, there was a couple men, but it was mostly women. And they were very, I don't know, it was good. It was good. The vibe was good. She took away our group. So we had no way to talk. It was a Discord thing. She shut it down. So we couldn't communicate between each other anymore. All that was left was just listening to her talk, which I did used to like her, but somebody that would do that, I could have stayed. But everything within me said, okay, because the red flags were already going off before she took away the group. That was just the last straw as her popularity grew, because that, like, you're going to be attacked. Like,
Oh shit.
Go ahead.
No, she's there. She's there. It was only temporary. Keep going. Oh no, it happened again. All right, no.
Okay,
So
I think
there
I'm
we
back.
go. There we go. There you're back.
It didn't fully go out that time, but it was in and out. But yeah, no, because there's so many things, and just staying in places where you don't belong, lack of connection, staying and trying to make something work because you think you should, and it's just not aligned. Like, I have learned to just be alone for many, many years, just like in this world, obviously not in real life. I'm surrounded by many people. But in the spiritual world, like, you want to have that connection. You want to talk to someone and not feel crazy. But it took me just choosing to, like, stop trying to seek that community, just let it be, just be alone for years and years and years. And then it accidentally ended up happening. So it's hilarious because that's what they always say, manifestation or the universe works. And I literally saw it play out that way. And then our whole thing, there's no energy stealing whatsoever. So I know it's possible. Like, it's extremely possible to find what works for you, but it takes allowing, it takes choosing to just be alone or quit or whatever the situation is where you are, because whatever's authentic for you, that's it. And then the divine really does present the answers.
Definitely. Don, what are your thoughts?
Usually I would just go on my, the news is the devil, the water boy's mama speech here, because that's one of the most spiritually draining things you can do is the internet.
Foosball.
Yeah, you're going to lose all your fancy foosball game, Bobby Boucher. Anyway, no, like that. I was actually at that state of mind at one point. Like, I knew everything on the news was evil and trying to create their narrative and blah 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 blah. And it was actually my darling interdimensional exit buddy. She's like, okay, because she still watches it at discerningly. And I was like, why do you still listen to that shit? And she's like, she actually got it across to me. It's spiritual protection as well. It's to know where not to be, know what not to be involved in, because you can use the news just like you can use the algorithms on social media to teach you, right? You can still pick out okay, there's going to be riots in this city. I'm going to be over here, right? You can use their own system of programming against them because they're going to tell you it's predictive programming, right? We know that. They're going to tell you what they're going to do and where they're going to be. So if you want to avoid all of it, just catch the headlines and be like, okay, I think that's serious. And that actually came from Kyla. I'm just kind of paraphrasing. And it's probably one of the better energetic protection things that I can think of, because like there's certain spots where it's like, okay, I'll look at the news headlines and it's like, okay, there's a parade down there. I'm changing my route today because I'm not getting involved in that shit, right? Because like it really is. You can just read the headlines and protect yourself.
I would completely agree, and I think, I mean, you can take part in that with discernment if you understand the playing field, and that's one thing I will say, because if you're not understanding the playing field and you think everything that you're seeing, absolutely everything that you're seeing is factual, there, you're going to be disappointed. But at the same time, no, they do put the tidbits of truth in, and it's a way to spiritually protect ourselves. And also too, you can see what they're trying to get us to manifest, and you can directly work against that. Look at that. That's like one of the most powerful things. I mean, right now at least here in the States, they want some kind of civil war. You can even see on a global scale, they definitely want World War III. They are pitching it. They are literally in their best salesman suits right now at this point, trying to pitch these ideas and these narratives to everybody. Like, oh, you don't like the blue-haired girl that works at the coffee shop that is maybe not of your sexual orientation, or oh, you don't like the guy wearing the MAGA hat, you hate him, right? Like, and this is kind of what when you approach it from that awareness, you can see what they're trying to get us to manifest. And I think everybody here does not want to manifest the parasite class's outcome. I think this is not something we are about here, and we want to avoid that at all costs. So Don, I definitely agree with you and Spinja on that. I think that's a great way to kind of get an idea of what's going on, but of course approach it with awareness. The other thing I'm going to say too is spiritually draining. Before we head into, I have a little surprise thing I'm going to bring up, and of course I think you two probably are going to know where it comes from. But the other thing I think is spiritually draining as well is to constantly, and I mean constantly, give your power away. That is the other thing too. We have our own internal savior, the divine in Christ. Okay. Giving your power away and giving it to external objects or other external people, potentially hero worshiping billionaires by chance, or, potentially hero worshiping politicians because they dangle the carrot. Sam, I hope you're watching. They dangle the carrot in front of you, to get you to vote for them, catering to your narrative and ideology. So essentially too, it's giving your power away can be a very spiritually draining thing. And that's where I always kind of come in and, talk about, especially the idolatry of all these huge people, these famous people. And that's why I ask people, who do you relate to more? Do you relate more to Alex Jones, or do you relate more to the person who's next to you in your community that is going through this with you, experiencing it with you? Alex Jones is fat and happy sitting with his stack of cash. Don't get me wrong. I still have respect for him. Don't get me wrong. He was very integral in the early stages of my remembering. But Alex Jones has no relation to you as the common person. You know what I mean? He is sitting fat and happy behind his desk. He's now, I think, been subverted by that tiny country in the Eastern Mediterranean. And, he doesn't relate to you at all. So, this is the other thing to you guys, is putting your stock and faith in these individuals who are obviously controlled opposition. And that doesn't mean that there isn't some truth in there. I'm not saying there isn't. They could very well be relaying some truth, but it's the putting the stock and faith in these people as opposed to just taking it for what it's worth. So that's the one thing I just kind of wanted to add there. And I kind of want, this is a little bit of a bonus thing. So, and I want to pick you two's brain on this. And I did ask this question on X the other day. In our walk with Christ and in our spiritual evolution, we're often visited with the concept of dying before dying. And ultimately, I think there's a lot of discrepancy, a lot of misunderstanding of what this means sometimes in the community. And, a lot of people might look at this statement. What do you mean dying before dying? When you die, you die. Like, you're no longer in this plane of existence. But no, this is actually something that we can achieve here. And what does it mean, at least in my eyes, to die before dying? Well, what is the thing that ultimately separates us from the divine? What is the ultimate thing that separates us from that unification? It's the ego. It's this experience that we're having here. So through the taming and the softening, and in some cases of killing the ego, this is ultimately what dying before dying means. Because when you remove the ego, I guess let me phrase it like this. So through the softening and the taming of the ego, we soften and we tame it, and that's what we need to do to exist here. But because the ego is soft and tamed and it's still there, we still have our perspective that is laden into what we experience in this reality and how we experience the spiritual nature of reality. When we remove the ego completely, we allow ourselves to sit in the raw, unfiltered truth. And through sitting in that raw, unfiltered truth, we can begin to alchemize and integrate that raw, unfiltered truth into the current being that we are. And to me, that is dying before dying, because you remove the identity of who you are. You remove the attachments of this world. You remove what ultimately ties you to this plane of existence, the ego, and you allow yourself to sit in the raw, unfiltered truth. And through that comes a transformation. Because now that you have experienced the raw, unfiltered truth, you have been changed and you have been upgraded and you have been altered. You are no longer the previous format of who you were. And that is, to me, what it means to die before dying. But I want to get you two's takes on what you guys think it means.
I will hop right on that one. November 20th was my 6th confirmed NDE where I actually did die. And what I got to bring an amazing experience back with me, and I actually talked about that on your show, and that's a whole other thing. But what that brought back to me was the understanding, and it put my ego in check. I didn't kill it, I don't think. I think I've just learned to work with it. That, yeah, I'm going to die someday. Absolutely, this biological vessel is going to cease to function at the vibrational capacity at which it requires for me to be functional, right? That's going to happen to each and every one of us. But who I am, the being, the collective of all of my conscious experience throughout reality, will never die, right? Your ego is just a physiological function of our existence. And the separation of self from ego is one of the healthiest things you can do. I don't think you need to kill it. You definitely need to confer with it because it has some good input too. But once you accept the fact that each and every one of us is going to die, we're going to cease to exist in this biological form at some state of existence, it allows you to accept what's going on in your life in a more realistic way.
Love it, man. I love it. What are your thoughts, Dyanna?
Well, I agree. But it's interesting because this came to me in a lyric of one of my more recent songs, and it's the constant call to suicide is the soul's call for the ego to die. And that just came to me for the chorus of the song. And as this stuff does, like when you're doing poetry, it just comes and you kind of get what it means. Like you usually like get an inkling of what it means. Like it's not like you're just writing just words, but there was so much depth that continues to unpack because I listen back to this music all the time. It's the main reason I made it, because I wanted spiritual music, because music is so powerful for brainwashing ourselves. And this message just kept unfolding and unfolding. And it literally made me like, oh my God, that constant call to suicide, because I was very suicidal when I was younger, early 20s, teenage years, like very, very, very constantly just like, I want the F out of here. And that's because I have a soul that came here to wake up. I had a soul that came here to wake up. And that's its only thing it cares about. It has pushed me that way my whole life. But before, I had this ego that's just trying to do the ego thing, trying to regular people life. And that's why I like what you said there, Stephen, about reformatting, because that's exactly it. You have an old model and you need to reformat. And that means like changing out the program. So it means like the ego thinks it's going to die. I don't know. It might actually be dead and like a new one comes in, like, because we don't really understand the depths of how this works. We're the witness. So because that's why people talk about walk-ins. And honestly, if you saw old me, there's some similarities. Like I'm way more mature. Like I'm ridiculously more mature. It would like be looking at a child version of someone, except I'm not that much older. You know what I mean? Like if I was like 70 years old, this level of maturing would make sense. But because it's only like 10 years later, this is like, whoa, because I have just completely upgraded the system by allowing, because that whole reason of like that constant wanting suicide was because the ego did not want to let go of what it was trying to hold on to. And it was so many things over the years, and we all have our own versions. So, and I've told Stephen this before, that letting the bull, like riding that bull into submission, like that's ultimately what you have to do. And then it does honestly get like beat out. Like it does kind of like learn to stop fighting so much, because it learns that you're not just going to kill yourself, and you're not just going to give in. It's like a tantruming child. It'd be like, give me what I want or I'll kill myself. Give me what I want or I'll kill myself. And it'd be something stupid. It would always be something stupid, but it would just have to get what it wanted. That the ego used to have, and I think a lot of people still live this way, control narrative over the self, where we should be living from alignment and doing what the soul says to do. So like if I want chocolate versus no snack or a healthy snack, the ego is going to like have the chocolate, and the soul is going to be like have the healthy thing or nothing. And that's when the ego starts having its crying tantrum. And that's going to be many variables for whatever the situation is, but letting it cry deflates it. And every deflation could be a death, really, because we're the witness, not the ego. So if it's changed out, we actually might not notice. We can't really be sure how that works, because it's not real in a large degree. It is a program. So it definitely does switch programs. That's one thing we know for sure. And we are in control of just allowing that tantrum and just going forward with the soul aligned plan, regardless of how much it screams.
I dig what you said about, I dig what you both said. I mean, and mostly it's not about killing it. It's riding it into submission. And absolutely. And I only brought up the complete death for a certain reason. I do think that experiencing that from time to time is good for us, for sure. The complete death. How do we experience that? Well, there are multiple ways, but a very easily a way could be entheogenic plants. It could be through Kundalini yoga. It could be, there are multiple different ways to do it, but I'm with you guys. Ultimately, in the harmony of our lives and our existence here on this planet. And what I liked about what you said, Dyanna, is that you can get a reformatted ego, especially after the reformatting goes. So it's ultimately something that I think that what we should be doing on our spiritual evolution is kind of diving into that a little bit more, because we're so quick. Again, the parts of us that we avoid, we're avoiding victory, right? So it's at this point, like, don't avoid your ego, get to understand it. You know what I mean? Understand how it operates, understand how it functions. And through that, you can have a greater process in writing that bull into submission. And you could understand the ego a little bit more. So you become more efficient at that process. But ultimately, guys, I want to say this was an amazing show. We talked about a lot of great things. And other than that, I want everybody to enjoy their Sunday. I will, of course, this was pre-recorded. Everybody's going to be kind of doing their own thing. I have a special day tomorrow. So that is why we're pre-recording this. Don't worry. You all will find out what's going on once it's done. And other than that, I want to thank everybody here for joining another Church of True Christ Sunday ministry. We will be back next week with some more stuff for you guys to talk about. And if you liked what you heard tonight, definitely give a like, a follow, and a subscribe. We have my account, we have Dyanna's account, we have Don's account in the description of all the videos. And yeah, come talk to us, guys. But other than that, thanks for joining us. Everybody, have a happy Sunday. And we'll catch you next week. Take care.